Welcome to WeAreSC. Welcome to Five Things. This is Erik McKinney, joined by Katz and Marc Kulkin. Guys, we are talking Utah's 34-32 win against USC in the Coliseum. A last-second Cole Becker 38-yard field goal wins it for the Utes. This is one we could probably take to 10 or 12 things, but we're going to go ahead and stick to our normal five here. And always with our first one, we're going to go player of the game. Greg, go ahead and lead off your player of the game in this one.
Well, I mean, it depends on which side of the fence you're on. If you're Utah, you could look one way. If you're USC, I guess it gets down to field goal kicking. If you're looking for really bright side stuff, I mean, Cole Becker hit the two big field goals in the end. The last one, a lot of pressure, but they did a great job. I think, boy, I tell you, Whittingham's the best coach in this conference. I'm sorry. I've said it 1,000 times. This is 1,001. He's now 3-0 against Lincoln Riley. You get to the 3-0, 4-0 category. There's work to be done. I think Lincoln Riley kind of said it without saying it in his post-game press conference. He's got some stuff to learn along with his players, his teams, and what have you. But you know what? I'm just not sure who the player of the game was. I mean, Caleb Williams did a great job.
You said it. It's Kyle Whittingham, right? I mean, go with him.
Okay, you convinced me. No, it's to me, player of the game could be a coach of the game. Kyle Whittingham, hands down. How's that?
Yeah, that's fine. Marc, your player of the game in this one.
Yeah, I'm really trying to keep this measured right now. I'm going to say the player of the game was the media, because apparently this outside noise affected USC's players. They started to hear it. This was what Lincoln Riley brought up after the game. So obviously I'm being real sarcastic right now, but that was a very poorly coached team. So yes, I agree with Greg. Kyle Whittingham was the player of the game because clock management is essential. And he still had 3 timeouts left on that final drive, and he used them masterfully. I know one coach who has no idea how to do clock management from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Player of the game, Kyle Whittingham.
I mean, there's really no other way to look at this. Utah comes in here, and yes, they've been playing without Cameron Rising all year, right? This was not all of a sudden you have to throw your backup quarterback in. You've had time to play with them. Utah is down their 2 best tight ends, a position they use a ton. They are down their starting quarterback, who is not close in skill level and experience to the guys who are playing now. And they've been decimated at running back too. And they walked in to the Coliseum and won this game and did everything that you kind of, if everything goes well for Utah, this is what they're going to have to do. And they were able to do it and do it and do it. So I'm with you. If you're looking at USC, I mean, you talked about the kickers. Dennis Lynch hit a big field goal and probably would have kicked you 2 more extra points, which we can get into later there. Zachariah Branch, maybe you look at his offensive stats and he had 3 total yards, but a touchdown and then just an unbelievable punt return. Zachariah Branch, again, this is a separate conversation from what USC is right now as a program and a team. He is unbelievable as an individual skill player. It is a joy to watch him on special teams, but nothing to go through in terms of USC offense or defense. There were some big plays that we'll get to, but this was a Kyle Whittingham Utah program coming into the Coliseum and walking away with this win. And that's a tough thing to say when you thought USC had everything going for it in terms of getting this Utah team this year under these circumstances, with last year playing out the way it did, and they'd be ready to go and roll. Did not happen. So our second thing, we're going to roll into the play of the game. And Greg, that's up to you to go first. Maybe an obvious one at the end, but maybe a bunch kind of throughout here.
Well, this is what I wrote about for tomorrow, Sunday. The two biggest plays to me, based on time, place. One, the incredible lack of discipline by Bear Alexander in getting a targeting call at the worst possible moment. Take away those 15 yards, what have you, the momentum. Who knows what would have happened at the end of a field goal? Maybe it wasn't going to be a chip shot, basically, okay? But it happens. Okay, it happens. But the one that really annoys me, and I have no other way to say it in an adult language, was, my God, you gave up a 27-yard scramble around the right end of the quarterback. Are you kidding me? We're going into the 7th, 8th game of the season, and you still can't contain. This was the worst. I've always believed, even when I coached, a team's consistency issue will always bite you at the worst possible time when it really, really counts. This was like Pop Warner football. Run around the end if nobody's there. How could you not turn that play inside? Why would you go in? We've talked about this 1,000 times. I know Mark has, I know you have. There's such a thing as contain. You can't contain somebody in that. This wasn't like an 8-yard mess. This was like 27 yards. And then out of bounds, stop the clock. And then Willingham masterfully maneuvers the clock. So, it's between the hash marks. Two inexcusable plays at the end. I hate to say it. I wish it didn't happen, but it did.
Mark, your play of the game in this one.
Yeah, it goes back to Coach Riley chasing 2 points. Period. If I have to extrapolate that and explain this to people, you're not smart enough for the show, and you probably shouldn't be watching football. The fact that you are chasing points that early in the game, and then you have to chase it again because you're not getting the extra points, what's the difference in the score? This loss falls on Lincoln Riley from beginning to end. Period. I'm not pointing the fingers at any players in this game.
So breaking down that 2 point, because it was huge, right? So Kalen Bullock returns the interception, 13:28 left in the game, and USC's down 5. They go for 2 to try to cut it to 3. It's my least favorite thing that happens on a 2-point conversion, where you start with the ball at the 3-yard line and throw it from like your own 30 because your quarterback has to move back there. And they did it twice in this one, which is just tough to watch. So they don't get that. I think the issue becomes, right, when you trust your offense and you think that they can go get 3 yards, you can kind of understand going for 2 in some circumstances once it gets into the fourth quarter. I think the issue becomes that you're still chasing another score. And so later, with 3 minutes left, you kick a field goal instead of going for it on 4th down. And at that point, that takes you down 5, and you still have to go get a touchdown. So it's those 2 decisions in the same quarter, in the same game. And I understand, right? Coaches have a feel for how the game's going and how your team's playing and that sort of stuff. And that sometimes when you don't just go straight by the chart, that's what they'll talk about with the 2-point conversion. But those 2 decisions in the same quarter of the same game just seem to be completely contradictory. And then when you needed the 2-point at the end, again, Caleb Williams is throwing fading back from his 14-yard line when you started with the ball at the 3. Those are tough to watch. And again, if it's, yes, hindsight's 2020, but that was in real time. That felt, kick the extra point. You're down 4. That's okay, because you know that you're going to have to score again, and you're going to have to score a touchdown at that point. But I think you felt okay at that point with your offense, again, with 13 and a half minutes left. So explaining that, the play of the game, I'm with Greg. We should be talking about Kalen Bullock's interception, right? We should be talking about that Solomon Byrd pass rush. We should be talking about the Zachariah Branch punt return. Those were all plays that set up a win. And those are on defense and on special teams. And again, they weren't perfect on those sides, but those two made huge plays when you needed them. It's that defensive drive at the end, because it had everything, right? It had the penalty that we've kind of seen all year, and it had the lack of contain, right? That Greg talked about there. And it also had the 4th and short with the game on the line, and USC has its nickel package in kind of light everywhere, and Utah just direct snap and runs it and converts it. It's kind of everything that we've seen on that side just cubed up in one drive and just shoved at USC, and Utah ends up winning with a lot of stuff defensively that has been an issue for USC. So lots of plays, and it's another game. Lincoln Riley talked about the Notre Dame game, right? They made the play. They made more plays. This is it again. This is Utah made the plays that they needed to. All right, enough time there. Third down. Third thing. It's a night. Our third thing is going to be our expectation met, and I know maybe we can't get into expectations at this point. I know Mark might have something to say about that. The expectation you had coming into this game that was met, Greg, go ahead. And I have a feeling we may hear about Kyle Whittingham again here.
Well, first of all, I felt, and I said this on 4 Downs, our Friday show, that you said, give me a number and then tell me what it was. And I said 25. I said they have to hold Utah under 25 points. And they didn't. I said they had to get out ahead early. And they didn't. They deferred the kickoff, which was surprising to me. The USC takes the ball at the beginning, to assert themselves on offense. But I think they wanted to make their defense feel good and stop them, which they didn't. Of course, Utah went right through them, which was like, okay. But, you get to a point where you just feel like you're just saying the same things over and over. And if you are a fan of one thing or another, you either agree with us or you don't agree with us. But going back to it, I think that how should I put this? I think Lincoln Riley is a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I don't think he's an exceptional coach, but he had a good beginning in his career. All right. And now he's playing in probably the toughest conference in America, at least this year. And he's matching wits with a lot of people. And, we all sat there and said, well, they barely lost at Utah last year. And then Caleb had a hamstring problem, in the championship game in Las Vegas. But there's no excuse for this year. I mean, this year, this is what surprises me. That with with Cam Rising, they're probably undefeated. They're probably in the top 7 in the country. Okay. And there's such a disparity right now between what Kyle Williams believes in and what he does physically, discipline-wise. And that's really what you want to have your team do, no matter what system you run. And we're just not seeing that at the moment. Hopefully it'll be a learning experience. Lincoln Riley brought up in the post-game press conference, I'm learning too. Well, sometimes learning is painful, and we're watching that right now.
Mark, your expectation that was met in this one?
That Alex Grinch can make any bad offense look good. I got nothing else to add on this. I'm sorry. It's you prefaced everything. You're missing your starting quarterback. You're missing running backs. You're missing your tight ends. You're missing offensive linemen. And these guys are putting up career numbers. It's not about the players anymore. It's about the scheme. And they're not improving. And if Lincoln Riley thinks that, well, if I don't put my players out there to answer questions after a tough game is going to make them mentally tougher, I think you're protecting them.
So the expectation I had coming in was that Utah's offense would be Jaquindon Jackson and Sione Vaki. And and that was it. And then that they were going to do whatever they could to get those two the ball, and the offense was going to work or not work based on how well they did. Well, they ended up with 335 total yards of Utah's 482. And Utah found a way to, again, with just those two, exploit every part of the field against USC, right? Sione Vaki, who just flipped to offense last week against Cal as a running back, starting safety, moves over there. Utah finds him early against a true freshman rush end who gets caught in coverage, and also finds him late against the same true freshman rush end who gets caught in coverage and is being asked to defend somebody 25, 30 yards downfield, running full speed with his back to the quarterback. That is rough. That is a rough ask. And Utah found ways with motion, with formation, with all of it to just get the same two guys the ball and in space. And that was the expectation I had. I didn't know how well it would work, but you knew that guy and that guy. Those are the two that we need to defend. And that's what it was for Utah. It was them all night in this one. Let's go to our fourth thing. That was the surprise from this one. Greg, your surprise here tonight.
Well, as far as the game, I thought SC was dead in the water. So I was surprised when Kalen Bullock got that interception, the pick six, went back. And for a moment there, you say, can they do it? Can they do it? And then you guys already touched upon the 2-point conversions. You know, that was a disaster. I didn't care for the play call, but that was just my perspective on it. You know, that's kind of how I looked at it. It was just like, here, take it, take the game over. And they still couldn't do it. I mean, they even had the lead at the end, you know, before that drive. It was there. And you know what they say? Championship teams win close games. Non-championship teams lose close games.
Mark, you're surprised from this one.
How much learning Lincoln Riley has to do at coaching? It was really magnified in this game. I'm surprised, I'm shocked, I'm dismayed, disappointed, upset, mad. And again, when you listen to the post-game press conference, there's a litany of reasons why. And that was my surprise, that Lincoln Riley is all of a sudden now not even willing to stand behind his own words. You know, he doesn't know where this narrative is coming from, where people are expecting this team to win a championship. Well, I can take them back to the beginning of the season or back in the spring. That's my surprise. It's the lack of accountability.
No question about it, Mark. You're right on.
So mine was in game. I mean, the surprise is Utah scored 34 points, right? I mean, that matches their season high. Bryson Barnes throws for a career high in passing. I know, Mark, you said there's no surprise when an opposing team puts up huge numbers and yards, but I think we all kind of had an idea that this USC defense might be able to keep it down a little bit. But the surprise to me,
offense.
the surprise to so the surprise to me was USC came out with a new offensive line, not a completely new offensive line, but Mason Murphy gets inserted. He's playing right guard. Jarrett Kingston moves over to right tackle. They gave up some pressure and weren't flawless in the run game, but that was fine. I think the offensive line in that game performed just well enough where you could win that game with that performance. And Lincoln Riley kind of touched on, you know, we're holding the ball a little bit, and he kind of put that in with turnovers as like pretty significant mistakes there. So, but again, the surprise to me was USC comes out and takes it to Utah on the ground, 100 rushing yards in the first quarter. They ran twice for -3 yards in the second quarter, and they scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. Surprise, they score nothing in the second quarter. And then it was more of the same, 48 rushing yards in the second half. And I understand that when the clock is ticking and you're down and all of that, but it was very surprising that they came out and played so well against a very good Utah defensive front early, and then kind of shut it down. And Lincoln Riley was asked about that mix of run pass as the game went along and play selection and that, and he kind of just sidestepped it, right? And it was, you know, you can argue this, or, you know, when I get asked about that, it's just kind of that's the way it goes, I guess. But that, again, both sides of that it was working so well early and then that it was gone. And I get, right, Marshawn Lloyd fumbles the ball and you can't do that. They put the ball on the ground a few times, but boy, that felt like a missed opportunity, even if you don't score every time, just to tell Utah, hey, we're here and we're going to push you and we're going to be here physically. That felt like a big missed opportunity to keep doing that in the second quarter, because when it was 14-14 at the end of the first quarter, Utah did not want to be in that kind of game.
No.
When it was 14-14 going into halftime, then Utah starts thinking, yeah, this is our kind of game. We can handle this. And that was, you could feel that shift there. I think with that Caleb Williams quarterback draw where he gets stuffed on that 3rd and 2 when USC has to punt, that felt like a pretty big turning point. There were a bunch of ebbs and flows late, lead changes, all of that. But as far as the game flow, that play there really felt like a change. All right, let's go to our 5th thing. We'll wrap this up. Well, maybe we'll go for a while on this one, but this is our biggest takeaway. Greg, your biggest takeaway from this one?
My biggest takeaway is what I felt 3 weeks ago, and I wrote about it. We are who we are. They are who they've been. You know, they do the same mistakes over and over. Coaching as well. I mean, it's a total, this is who you are. You're they're technically not, I mean, they're out of the national championship picture. Let's not even go there, right? But they still have opportunity. He's right, Lincoln Riley, Washington, although I don't know how many points Washington's going to put up. Does the Coliseum go over 100 points? They've got a chance to play Oregon. It doesn't look good right now. An 8-4 season. Maybe it's going to be 7-5. Who knows? All of a sudden, the Cal game is, next week. I don't know how they're going to perform against Cal, but this has the earmarks of a really unhappy ending, and it won't be like a fluke unhappy ending. It's like everything you do wrong is going to get exposed now. We'll see the same defenses against the Trojans. And like I said, before Bullock intercepted that pass, what did SC's offense actually do? I mean, the score is a little bit cosmetic and painful. They did earn that last, thanks to Branch. He put him back in the opportunity to win the game, and they did get the lead. But, going forward, it's going to be really a tough grind, but they've got a shot. Their shot now is to get into the championship game. They can do that if they sweep Washington and Oregon. I know a lot of people are going, yeah, right. And cows are going to start dropping from the sky. But, you got a puncher's chance. But I wouldn't go to Las Vegas and put money on it. That's for sure.
Mark, your takeaway from this one?
I think how undisciplined this team is mentally. Just so many breakdowns. Lincoln brought up, the penalties against Bayer. They were good calls. Again, this starts at the top. This isn't so much about the players. This is about the coaching, the way, you keep everything insulated. And the fact that these guys weren't ready to play at home. And maybe they were for the first quarter. But to come back after that Notre Dame debacle, and when things get tight, when things are hard, that's when things tend to break down with this team. And I'm having a really tough time understanding why, because you represent your head coach, and we don't get to see what happens in practice. We get to see them stretch, and then we get to see the end result here in the game. So, we're constantly told that, this is going to be a physical and mentally tough team. It's hard to see that progression. We're now in what, game 8?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is that this offense is
Progressive.
struggling, and there is they do not appear to have an answer. I mean, they scored 32 points. This is a 34-20 game, right? Kalen Bullock's interception return for a touchdown. Do they score without that Zachariah Branch 60-something yard punt return? And then after those, you put the offense on the field and they can't get either of the 2-point conversions. So this is, Lincoln Riley's right when he talks about, this isn't working. It's not just one player. It's on every play, somebody's doing something that causes the failure. The offensive line is good all night. Then all of a sudden there's a miss. Caleb Williams makes an unbelievable throw on 3rd down when he's rolling out and holds it a little bit and then hits Dorian Singer on the sideline. But then he's got another few where there's somebody open and he doesn't see him, or he holds it too long on this other play. The wide receivers are missing blocks on the outside that they've made in the past. There just is something going wrong on so many plays. And again, the idea that, we just have to fix that, it's not. That's not it. That's asking for magic at this point. And the fact that there isn't an answer, that they don't seem to be able to come up with something. Lincoln Riley talked about this Utah defense being one of the best defenses in the country. You're supposed to be one of the best offenses in the country too. Like, this isn't something where you just get to say, well, I don't know, they're pretty good. You got to put something together, and you got to be able to move the ball and put points up. And the fact that this is so many weeks in a row now, Caleb Williams has 2 passing touchdowns over his last 3 games. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in the last 3 times out. This is a not even really a growing problem anymore. This is a real problem. And I don't think there's any sense that they go and roll Cal next weekend. Like, they're going to be in a fight every single week the rest of this. And for some of these games, you hope that they can make it a fight. You talk about Washington coming in here and going up to Autzen, and those are going to be real struggles based on how this team plays and what you have to expect now from this team coming out every weekend, where you are going to have those issues that pop up on all 3 sides for USC going forward. So there is a ton of work to do. And Lincoln Riley likes to talk about, we're still in the middle of the season. There's still a lot out there. We can still go for it. That's fine. But these things are going to get tougher and tougher. And USC is not, you like the fight, right? You like the fight back and the getting back into this one. There's just too many mistakes, mental and physical, through 60 minutes for USC in this one. And that's a tough Utah team that comes in and gets that 34-32 win against USC. We almost couldn't hear Lincoln Riley in the post-game press conference. That Utah locker room was blasting music. You could feel the walls shaking down there. They absolutely wanted this one.
The new nickname is the LA Utes.
Heard that from them going up the tunnel. Absolutely. They are going to celebrate every second of this one until they have to get back on the field again.
This is the problem with this team, Erik. There is no identity. It's a team full of individually great players. As a team, they have no concept of what that is, what they're doing on offense, on defense, and special.
I think the idea too, when you look at the 2-point conversions, right? What do we do really, really well? What can we do? And you love the Zachariah Branch touchdown, right? Like, that was set up well, him coming around. But when you really needed him, you didn't have anything. You didn't have anything on those 2 plays, and those ended up being absolutely huge in this one. So that's our 5 things look at Utah's 34-32 win against USC. For Marc Kulkin, for Greg Katz, this is Erik McKinney. Thanks for watching 5 Things. Thanks for watching WeAreSC.